All right, what's going on, guys? No, just checking in with Douglas Bloch, author, counselor, depression survivor. We are going to talk about another mental health topic. He recently was featured on the channel, and I'm trying to get a few videos in with him to sprinkle in some really quality mental health stuff for you guys to use, for me to use. Now, I'm happy to say we have not rehearsed any of this today, so what you're seeing here is just coming off the top of our head. I stand to learn a lot. I hope you learn a lot from Doug as well. Link in the description if you want to check out his channel. He's a brilliant guy. Douglas, thank you for being on the channel.
Thanks a lot. I love your introductions.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
He's got the gift of gab, everybody.
I'm a wordsmith. I'm not a talker. I'm not a talker.
He's got the gift of gab.
So today we are going to talk about the issue of anxiety and depression. Which one is worse? Now, I want to quickly mention that this is not an actual pissing contest for who's in more pain, but it's more just, I think we're just going to explore some of the nuances, some of the differences, and then try to more relate the two in a way that's tangible for everyone, because they're usually comorbid. But I'm mostly interested to know what you have to say on this, because I made a video a long time about this. I know what I think about this, but we want to suck up his knowledge. We want to be sponges for Doug. So, Doug, I mean, on the topic of anxiety and depression, which is worse? Where does that take you?
Well, first of all, I want to basically reinforce what you said. 80% of the time they are comorbid, which means they're happening together.
Exactly.
Like kissing cousins.
Right.
Fraternal twins. And so, I've been in both places, as you have, and they both suck. Really.
They really do.
But they kind of have different qualities to them. So, back in 1996, 1997, the episode I write about in my book, When Going Through Hell Don't Stop, I took this drug called Effexor, had a bad reaction, and was plummeted into an agitated depression. That's the worst of both worlds. That's when you're depressed and you have anxiety at the same time.
Right. Both in a severe state.
Both in a severe state, right. But it's interesting, and what happened to me is they would alternate from day to day. Like one day, I'd be super depressed. I would hardly be able to get out of bed. I was feeling hopeless. I was just barely able to make it through my day. But I was calm. Then the next day I'd wake up horribly agitated, pacing back and forth. I wasn't depressed, but I could sit still, and I would start thinking about killing myself because I'll never get better. So that was its own demon. Now, at least for the anxiety, I could pop a Klonopin. Or for some people, a Xanax.
As prescribed.
As prescribed, right, of course. And then within 20 minutes I was loopy and stupid and kind of drooling in the corner.
But calm.
But calm. The depression, there was nothing to take that away.
No.
The closest thing was getting up on my bicycle, if I could my stationary bike, if I could motivate myself and do 20 minutes of cardio, which took a little bit the edge off it. But they both have their own horrors.
They do.
Now, go ahead.
In your personal experience, though, which one do you think you dreaded more? If you can recall, or it was a wash.
Because I know the anxiety.
Same.
I dread the anxiety.
I dreaded the anxiety the most
absolutely.
as well.
Because it was more disabling.
Yes, I would say it was more. That's exactly what I was
saying.
going to say.
Is that what you said before?
I was really about to say.
So here's an example. There's a really cool gal who was in the group shortly after you left. She was housebound. There's a term for this, agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia, yeah.
But her anxiety was so bad that she couldn't even go out to the mailbox to get her mail.
Right.
So she had to take a break from her job, and she barely made it to my group. So she saw a really smart guy up on the hill here in Portland, Oregon, OHSU, called Jim Hansey, who said, try some Klonopin out. No, I don't want to take it, I'll get addicted. And after a while, he finally convinced her, and that took the edge off. That was sort of like the first step in at least allowing her to be more functional.
Right.
But, I couldn't drive when I was anxious. Depressed, I could drive to day treatment, not when I was anxious. Someone had to drive me.
Exactly.
I couldn't sit in a group when I was anxious, so I paced back and forth. They'd have to say, Douglas, could you please leave the room and walk around the block and calm yourself down? Then you can come and sit on these groups. By the way, day treatment is when you get out of the hospital, you're in groups 4 to 6 days a week. 9:30 to 3:30. It's a structure. It's like being in the hospital, but you're not actually incarcerated. But it's really good for healing. But when you're so anxious you can't even sit down and participate, what good is it? So I'd walk around the block, pop a Klonopin, come back, wouldn't participate, but at least I was. It was like an ADHD kid in a classroom, right?
Yeah.
At least I was calm and not bothering anybody.
Yeah.
So I found that the anxiety was more debilitating and more interfered with the activities of daily living.
Yeah.
However, it was in the depressed state that I felt more hopeless and more suicidal.
Correct. Yeah. This is exactly.
It's like pick your poison, right?
Right.
When you have both going at the same time, then it's a double hell.
Right.
Fortunately, most of the people in my groups, it's usually one or the other. So there might be high anxiety and the depression is low, or high depression and the anxiety is low.
Right.
So they're normally not, like on a 1 to 10 scale, I was rating my symptoms from 1 to 10, where 10 was major symptoms and 1 was no symptoms. So
Yeah.
one day, the depression was a 9, the anxiety was a 2. The next day, the anxiety was an 8, meaning a lot of symptoms, the depression was a 3.
Sure.
But on some days, they were both 9. That's when, I figured I need to jump off the Fremont Bridge.
That's when you felt really,
Yeah,
really
that was
unsafe.
the worst. But most of the time, one dominates or the other, even though the second one's in the background.
Yeah.
And so, it really, everybody's going to give you their own story. But I've pondered this question, what would I rather be
Yeah.
if I had a choice?
If you had a choice.
And the answer, of course, is neither. But I find the anxiety is definitely the more disabling in terms of functioning.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with the anxiety. I remember when I first had my breakdown and I felt very suicidal. I couldn't eat because my depression was so bad, and I got so incredibly anxious that when I tried to go anywhere, I would panic. And I'd never experienced that before. I never once experienced that type of anxiety. I had anxiety about standard things. I don't want to talk in front of a big group, or I'm nervous on how I'll perform on a test. But this was different. It felt so out of control that I wasn't I became afraid of the fear that if I went anywhere or did anything, I'd panic in front of people. They'd watch me, my heart rate elevate, and I would freak out. And so I became so just overwhelmed by that possibility because I was so on edge that I just was hiding. I just felt like I was constantly hiding, and the smaller the space, the better I did. I didn't want to go outside. I certainly couldn't go into a supermarket. I remember celebrating the day that I could walk into a store because I was so overwhelmed by the stimulus. And I remember thinking I'd never feel any better. And then, of course, the depression for me was always in the morning. That would get me worse in the morning. Yeah. Anxiety would usually get me a little bit later, typically. And it was just, I felt like I was just playing catch with them. And I never contemplated it then, but I've seen people in the comment section, to bring back the whole no pissing contest mindset, saying, well, at least you're not super depressed, you're just anxious. Or at least you're not really anxious, you don't know what it's like.
Just depressed,
and
right?
I think the important thing is to understand that most of us understand some level of both,
right.
And that we need to try to console one another, learn from one another, share information, not feel like being more depressed or more anxious will make anyone happier, make you feel better, or really makes any difference in the grand scheme of things. We're all experiencing things the way we are, and it's like you said, it's pick your poison. They're both bad, and they both deserve respect, and they both deserve hard work to overcome.
Right. Well, here's one more example before we wrap it up. So it was my last episode occurred in 2015.
Yeah.
Started to come on in April, again after a bad reaction to the antidepressant. So I had planned to go down to Yosemite Park in California, a place I've always loved to see, visit 2 of my best friends. I had the plane tickets already. But as the time got closer and closer, the idea of imagining myself getting in a plane and getting out in an airport in San Francisco by myself, and trying to basically meet somebody to take me up to Yosemite, I got overwhelmed. The simplest thing, like going to the airport, was too much, and I had to cancel the trip. I mean, right now, I would gladly hop on go to a national park and hop on a plane, no problem. But when the agitation, the anxiety takes over, the fear is so powerful that you go into the future and say, could I handle doing this? And the answer is no. I can't do it. It's
Whereas
too much.
when you're depressed, you said this hopelessness and the despair and that numb feeling that comes over us, but not so much the inability to move around. It's just it's more internal as opposed to this physical agitation.
Well, I just took a class in dialectical behavioral therapy, otherwise known as DBT.
Yeah.
And they talked about the 3 things that can really help when you're in an anxiety crisis. One is what we've talked about is intense physical exercise. Right. The other is paced breathing.
What's paced breathing? Quickly.
We're gonna have to.
Oh my God.
You know what? We're gonna cut.
He's dying. Shit.
Oh God Almighty.
That was a fit that came over you.
I did. It was like an epileptic fit.
So what's paced breathing?
Paced breathing means you breathe into the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, exhale for the count of 4, and hold for the. That's actually called square breathing.
Sure.
Really helps a lot to calm down the fight or flight system. But here's something I learned. It's called cold. Put your face in a sink of cold water and hold your breath. It's like you're diving underwater, and that somehow relaxes the sympathetic nervous system and allows the parasympathetic or the relaxation response. The other thing you can do is you can lie back and put an ice pack right over your face, covering your eyes.
Okay.
One of those gel packs that you have when you're putting on your knee or something when you have a sprain.
Yeah.
So cold application to the face, they have proven decreases anxiety. I wish I had known about that in the 96, 97 episodes.
Same.
So they call it TIP, TIP, temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing. That's the acronym they use. Remember, guys, here's the tip. Use this tip.
Yeah.
Temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing. So again, the anxiety is worse, but at least you can do things that will kind of quickly.
In our opinion.
Yeah, but at least you can do something that will quickly kind of turn down the volume.
Right.
But when you're depressed and hopeless and you're like on a 1 to 10 scale, you're at a 1.5. There's nothing. There's nothing that can get you to 4.
No, you can't watch one of your favorite movies. You can't be around one of your favorite people. You can't do something that used to be fun. It is completely immune to those things, and that's horrifying. Actually, listen, I want to wrap the video up because it's getting a little bit late in the video. The point of this video was most importantly to connect with you on some of our feelings towards anxiety and depression. In case you have an aha moment where you're like, "Whoa, I feel the same." Now you know you're not alone. I think that's paramount. Secondly, we're just talking because we've thought about these things. So in the comments below, what do you guys think is worse, anxiety or depression? Of course, like we said, it's not a competition. It's more just how has it affected you, and what are some of the ways you have learned to cope with those things. Let's be respectful and kind in the comments. Link in the description if you want to follow Doug's channel. You can also find him, Douglas Bloch, Douglas, Bloch, Bloch. Search that on YouTube. You will find his channel. He's been doing great things. He's awesome, and I appreciate you being on the channel. Let's pound it. We'll see you guys in the next video.